Home runs, moonshots, dingers. They have given us some of the greatest baseball moments. But back when center field was 600 feet away and catching a ball on a bounce was an out, no one was swinging for the fences. The last year I played baseball was when kids began to throw curveballs. I struck out around 99% of at-bats and walked off into the sunset, leaving behind me a trail of batting gloves, big league chew, and sweet childhood tears. Safe to say, there were no home run celebrations for me that year. Welcome back to First. I'm Mike Imhoff, and I'd like to tell you all a story of the early days of professional baseball, when homers were just beginning to find their place in the game. Disclaimer: everyone in this story is now dead. In the early 1800s, baseball was mostly confined to the eastern part of the US, and it was just a game. No one got paid for it. But during the Civil War, it became one of the few distractions soldiers had to forget about the pain and hardships around them, if only for a brief time. And when the war ended in 1865, soldiers took the game home with them to every corner of the country, along with memories that would haunt their dreams for the rest of their lives. By 1871, the game was beginning to become more organized, and the National Association of Professional Baseball Players was formed. Baseball now had a governing body. Sort of. The NA, as it was referred to, was dominated by the star-studded Boston Red Stockings. Arguably the most valuable of those players? Well, that would have to be Ross Barnes, who led the NA in both hits and runs, all while being the premier second baseman. The only knock on this mustachioed marvel was that he was a prima donna who often had difficulties getting along with his teammates. Referring to Barnes' relationship with his first baseman, the Chicago Tribune wrote in 1872 that they never exchanged a word and glanced at each other like opposing game chickens. The NA had problems of its own, folding after only 5 years. It was poorly overseen and suffered from heavy gambling influences. This was not the beginning of professional baseball as we know it. It was merely a step towards it. Our story truly begins with William Hulbert, who capitalized on the fledgling NA and poached their best players in order to start the NL, the National League. Among those players, the mustache himself, Ross Barnes. Barnes made the move from Boston to Chicago to play for the White Stockings, who would later become the Cubs. Boston fans, feeling abandoned, lobbed insults at Barnes, such as seceder, a term that really only hurt someone in the years surrounding the Civil War. The NL had its inaugural season in 1876. This was the beginning of Major League Baseball as we know it. But there were some very big differences between then and now. First off, Ross Barnes was known partly for his perfection of the fair-foul hit. A hit that would start fair, but had enough spin on it to go immediately foul and away from all fielders. This was considered a hit, even in the infield. And those fielders, they didn't wear gloves. Not until the 1890s. Even home runs were not the same as today. Outfield fences could be as deep as 600 feet, if there even was a fence. Some fields just had a rope, and fielders that caught a ball on one bounce were given the out. This drastically discouraged hitters from hitting fly balls, and most home runs were actually inside the park because of the sheer amount of space in the outfield. But that's not the kind of home run we're here to talk about. Inside the park home runs are bullshit. The people demand dingers, or as they called them then, clean home runs. May 2nd, 1876. Bill Cherokee Fisher of the Cincinnati Red Stockings is pitching against the Chicago White Stockings. With 2 outs in the 5th inning, up comes Ross Barnes, and as the Chicago Tribune puts it, Barnes had the finest hit of the game, straight down the field to the carriages for a clean home run. The first Major League home run was in the books. It was the only home run Barnes would hit that year. Little is known about Avenue Grounds, the park where Barnes hit the home run. So I can't tell you how far the home run went. What I can tell you is parks with exceptionally short left or right field fences had ground rules where balls hit over them were only doubles. This was not one of those parks. And if you hit it over a fence that was 600 feet away, you wouldn't need me to tell you the story, because every stadium would have a shrine set up in his honor. And was it the first baseball ever hit over a fence? No, but it was the first one in what is now referred to as Major League Baseball. Not to mention, Barnes is probably the best player you've never heard of. Barnes went on to win the National League's first batting title, hitting an astonishing .429 for the season, en route to a pennant win for Chicago. But the following year, Barnes' place at the top of the baseball world came to a screeching halt. Halfway through the 1877 season, Barnes took a leave of absence while suffering from what was described as the ague, which in the 1800s meant, yep, he's sick all right. While bedridden with a malaria-like fever, Barnes became weak and was stripped of the athleticism that made him such a dominant player. Upon his return, he was unable to achieve the high level of play baseball fans had come to expect from him. After 2 disappointing attempts at a comeback, Barnes retired at the age of 31. When Barnes was denied pay for the time he spent too ill to play, he became the first player to take legal action against his team. He lost, and slowly faded into the annals of baseball lore as the first home run hitter. Rule changes in the 1920s led to the emergence of home run greats like Babe Ruth. In the 1990s, steroids got us all drunk on home runs before leaving us hungover and questioning records altogether. But now we have players like Aaron Judge. And we remember there's nothing quite like a baseball getting crushed.
Your mustache came flying off on that one. Yeah, mustache.
Cut. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, hit like, watch the other episodes, or don't, but I'd prefer if you did.